Hello and welcome to the Federal. The Parliament logjam that's been going on now. Today was the fifth consecutive sitting of the ongoing winter session of Parliament, which was washed out uh, because of disruptions since the 25th of November when Parliament started for the winter session. There has been no work, no business that has been transacted as such because of disruptions, because of the opposition's demands for a discussion on multiple issues and the centre's refusal to concede those discussions. But that logjam is now likely to end tomorrow. There was an all-party meeting, a meeting of all floor leaders of the various parties in the Lok Sabha, which was convened today by Lok Sabha Speaker Mr. Om Birla. At that meeting, there was a push by both sides, the center, the government, and the opposition, to find a middle path that will allow parliament proceedings to resume. And the middle path that they have sort of come to is that the government has agreed to concede a discussion 2 days in the Lok Sabha, 2 days in the Rajya Sabha on the Constitution. Remember, this is the 75th anniversary of the adoption of the Constitution. On the 26th of November, there was a special joint sitting of both houses of Parliament to commemorate the adoption of the Constitution. And shortly after that, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, who's the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, and Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge, who's the leader of opposition in the Rajya Sabha, as well as other India Party MPs, India Bloc MPs, had written to the Lok Sabha Speaker, to the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, asking for 2 days to be allotted during the winter session to discuss constitution, various aspects of it, whether it's being undermined by the current government, whether the constitutional principles that our founding fathers had laid out for the country are being followed in letter and spirit, whether they are under strain. Now, the government had initially been very non-committal to that demand, but 6 days later, that seems to have been the middle path that has sort of brought the opposition and the government to an agreement to resume parliamentary proceedings. So later this month, the session concludes on the 20th of December. What the government has proposed is a 2 day discussion in the Lok Sabha on the 13th and the 14th of December. Significantly, 14th, which is a Saturday. Saturdays, the parliament doesn't function, but both sides have agreed to work on a day off, so to speak, and have that discussion in the Lok Sabha. And then on the 16th and the 17th, there will be a similar discussion in the Rajya Sabha. Now, the agreement, of course, we'll have to wait and see whether there will still be token disruptions and then adjournments, and the House, or if the House will proceed as it should. The Parliamentary Affairs Minister, Mr. Kiran Rijiju, has appealed to all parties, to all MPs, to allow normal functioning of both houses. Whether that happens or not, we'll have to wait and see. But what is particularly interesting here is that by agreeing to a discussion on the Constitution, of course, the center has sort of taken a step back. Maybe one can say that it has blinked. But there is also the opposition side, which, by agreeing to resume House functioning, to get back to the normal proceedings of Parliament, it has also tried to kind of skirt a problem that was staring it in the face. The India Bloc, as sources in the opposition have been telling us, has seen a sort of disunity developing in recent weeks, particularly after the Congress's poll rout in Maharashtra, in Haryana before that, and in the Jammu region of J&K. And so because of those poll debacles, the Congress's own position to dictate terms to the India Bloc on how their floor strategy in Parliament should be, what should be the terms of engagement with the center, has sort of taken a hit. Over the last 5 days, the Trinamool Congress, which is the third largest constituent of the India Bloc in the Lok Sabha, has refused to attend the morning meetings which Mr. Kharge, as in his capacity as the leader of opposition in the Rajya Sabha, convenes of all the floor leaders of the India Bloc parties to coordinate the opposition's floor strategy in Parliament. So the Trinamool has not been attending those meetings because the Trinamool has been saying that the Congress cannot take on the BJP. And so, why should we be taking a cue from the Congress on what issues we want to raise? Of course, the other consideration for the Trinamool also is that the Congress, while it wants to raise issues of more, which are more national in their character, national issues, broad issues, some would even call them vague issues, the Trinamool feels that its own issues, which are specific to Bengal, take a backseat when the India Bloc collectively has to make its floor strategy. And since elections in Bengal are just over a year away, the Trinamool Congress wants to be seen as fighting for all causes related to Bengal. So there were various issues on which the Trinamool Congress has been seeking a discussion. They have, and these are all directly related to Bengal. Also, they've been demanding a discussion on the allegations, the reports, the disturbing news reports that have been coming from Bangladesh of the persecution of Hindus in Bangladesh. So the Trinamool, of course, has been striking a discordant note as far as the India Bloc's narrative is concerned. There are also other parties in the India Bloc which are a bit uneasy with what they are calling the Congress's single point agenda of targeting Gautam Adani and the alleged nexus between him and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And the opposition, these non-Congress India Bloc parties believe that by disrupting the House proceedings, you're actually giving an advantage to the BJP because the BJP then gets away scot-free. If the House is disrupted, the presiding officer in the Lok Sabha, the presiding officer in the Rajya Sabha immediately adjourns the proceedings. We've seen a new form of adjournment in a sense happening where the presiding officers don't even make an effort on the floor of the House to, restore order. And barring, the first few minutes of the day when the Parliament sits, when there is some token transaction of business, the House is then adjourned for the entire day. What we used to see earlier was multiple attempts being made through the course of a Parliament sitting to restore order if there were disruptions. So you would see the House being maybe adjourned if there was disruption. It convenes at 11, maybe at 11:05. If there is an adjournment, the House would reconvene at 11:30 or at 12. If the disruptions continued, it may be adjourned again for an hour, meet again at 1. And during that break when the House is adjourned, there would be efforts by the the government side, by the presiding officers, by the opposition to find some way of resuming the House proceedings. But what we've seen in this session is that the House meets at maybe 11 o'clock. There's maybe at the most one adjournment, and then when the House reconvenes, it's very promptly adjourned for the entire duration of the day. So the opposition parties, the non-Congress India Bloc parties, have been saying that this is just helping the center, and we are being blamed for not allowing parliament to function. Whereas if we agree to a discussion, if we agree to a debate, we may have enough material to corner the government, to attack the government. And so while the Congress wants a discussion on the Adani issue. It wants a discussion on the constitution. It wants a discussion on the recent conflagration, the communal unrest that has been simmering in Sambhal, in Uttar Pradesh, and in other parts of the country where the Places of Worship Act is under strain by the BJP and its workers. The Congress's insistence to not allow the House to function till the time those discussions are conceded to by the center is not helping the opposition's cause, is what many in the India Bloc feel. So now, today, by allowing or by agreeing to the center's offer for a 2-day discussion on the constitution and to let the House function till that discussion happens, the India Bloc has sort of found some reason to kind of coalesce and get together for the remainder of the winter session. It's also something, it's not as if the center has conceded this discussion out of the charity of its heart. It's also something that could help the BJP because whenever the constitution is discussed, it allows the BJP enough room to isolate the Congress from the rest of the India bloc because there are enough instances of the Congress being in power and undermining the constitution while it is in power. The emergency being one of the most notable examples of that. There were multiple instances of president's rule being imposed, elected governments being uninstalled during the Congress rule at the center. There are instances of the Congress's initial reluctance to reservations for backward castes. All these issues are what the BJP would like to corner the Congress on. And these are all issues which are very touchy for several of the Congress's allies. And so you may not see those allies springing up in the Congress's defense when the Congress is attacked on these issues. So it is a sort of scaling back on both the center and the opposition's part, but it's also a sort of win-win for both. It allows the India bloc to maintain an impression of unity. It allows the BJP to attack the Congress. We are also hearing that the Prime Minister would respond to the discussion in both houses. And of course, there'll be other members of the BJP who will be speaking, as there'll be members from the opposition. What would also be interesting to see is whether the Congress, whether in the Lok Sabha, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, the leader of opposition, uses this discussion to allow Priyanka Gandhi, his sister, and the newly elected MP from Wayanad to make her maiden speech. She is known to be a very fiery orator. Maiden speeches generally allow a member of parliament to kind of take liberty with the time that is allocated to them. So she might be able to speak, a little more than the time allocated to her because it would be her maiden speech. So whether that actually happens or not, we'll have to wait and see. But it would be perhaps an opportune moment for the Congress to field Priyanka as a speaker on an issue of like the constitution, which was the central pillar of the India bloc's narrative against the BJP during the Lok Sabha elections earlier this year. And of course, the India bloc's campaign revolved around the allegation that the BJP had been undermining the constitution, and it was a plank that paid very rich electoral dividends to the India bloc. So we'll have to wait and see how this pans out. But for now, it seems that the parliament will resume functioning as it should because logjam disruptions do not help anybody. They don't help the center, they don't help the opposition, and they certainly don't help in raising issues of the country and its people. So we'll have to wait and see how the Parliament proceeds now from tomorrow onwards. What are the bills that the government plans to bring? What are the issues that the opposition raises? And of course, the debate on the constitution.